Hello everyone and welcome to Paranormal Living with me, your host, Jared Warren. So it's great to finally be back after so long and bring you this brand new look of Paranormal Living, which I'm sure you agree is very exciting, and I can't wait to share all the things we do have planned with each and every one of you. But in today's episode, we are actually going to talk about the Enfield Haunting, which I'm sure you'll agree is probably one of the most famous cases to come out of England, of 1970s England, should I say. If not, probably one of the most famous cases, full stop. But before we do get into today's episode, don't forget we are actually sponsored by Paranormal Technology. So Mark and Carrie at Paranormal Technology provide us with all our equipment in our investigations, as you've seen on a lot of the lives we've done. Also, if you do quote Paranormal Living to Mark at Paratech, you will get 10% off your first order. And then you can also get equipment like this. Very freaky. So make sure you do go check them out, guys. So without further ado, let's get into this brand new series of Paranormal Living. From the 31st of August 1977 to late 1978, the Hodgson family, consisting of Mother Peggy, her two daughters Margaret and Janet, and then her two sons Johnny and Billy, were involved in probably one of the most infamous hauntings in UK history. On the evening of the 31st of August, shuffling noises seemed to appear from nowhere in Janet and Margaret's bedroom. The girls couldn't explain it, very freaked out, started shouting. Peggy downstairs wondered what was going on, heard the disturbance, shouted upstairs for the girls to be quiet and get back to bed. Of course, the girls couldn't explain what was going on, and the noises continued to the point where shuffling from behind the chest of drawers became louder and the chest of drawers decided to move by themselves. The girls screaming, Peggy decided to go upstairs to tell the girls off, thinking they were just messing about, tell them to get back to bed. As Peggy entered the room, the chest of drawers started moving by themselves and coming towards Peggy. Peggy, of course, frightened and startled by what was happening, couldn't explain it, put her arms out to stop the chest of drawers from moving. They wouldn't stop. As she tried to push the chest of drawers back, they wouldn't move, as if something was blocking it or pushing it towards her. As this happened, Peggy decided to tell the girls to go downstairs, get the coats, and they would go to their neighbour's house. Upon arriving at neighbour Vic Nottingham's house, a very shaken Peggy tried to explain the phenomenon but really couldn't. There was no rational explanation to her. Couldn't explain it. So Vic, being a local builder and very well known in the area, took it upon himself to go see what was happening. Vic then got into the house. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Everything seemed to be in place. But not long after being in there, Vic started to hear a weird tapping coming from the walls. At first he just thought it might be the house moving, the pipes, being that time of night the house is settling. But as he wandered through the house, onto the landing, in the hallway, on the stairs, to every bedroom, this knocking seemed to follow him, to the point where it actually spooked him because he really couldn't explain it. Abruptly, he then decided to leave the house, spooked. But this is what Vic had to say about his overall experience.
I went all over the house, checked it, checked the walls, checked everything. Just couldn't make out what it was. So in the end I thought to myself, well, there's only one thing. I called the police. The police definitely wanted to get out of the house.
How could you tell?
They was as frightened as I was. And then the second night we went back in there again, and we got the same reaction again. We got this knocking, and then to see a Lego. I witnessed a box of Lego underneath a chair, but I walked into the room. As I walked into the room, the Lego began to fly. But where it was coming from, I don't know. One piece hit me on the arm, and
did it hurt?
Oh, it brought a lump up. It caught me on the elbow, and it brought a lump up. And as I
one
say,
tiny little piece?
One tiny little piece of Lego. Now it's not much bigger than 3/4 inch. But it caught me on the elbow, and as I say, it brought a lump up.
As we continue through the series of events within the Enfield Haunting, the police were called. WPC Caroline Hoots was the first to arrive on the scene. Peggy tried to explain the strange goings on in her house, but really couldn't. As he went through the house, one of the strangest things seemed to happen. From the corner of the room, a chair seemed to levitate in the air, from nothing. No explanation. This is what WPC Caroline Hoots had to say about the strange situation.
It came off the floor, or nearly a half inch, I should say,
and I saw it slide off to the right, about 3.5 to 4 feet before it came to rest. I checked to see whether or not it could possibly have slid along the floor. I placed a marble on the floor to see whether or not the marble would go in the same direction as the chair did, and it didn't roll at all. I checked for wires under the cushion of the chair, and I could find no explanation at all.
Following this, the police decided there was nothing they could do and left the scene. With no other option, they decided to call the Daily Mirror, and they spoke to a gentleman by the name of Graham Morris and Douglas Bence. They arrived at the Nottingham's house, greeted by Vic and Peggy. They were then taken into the Hodgson household. Set up their cameras, hoping for something to happen, hoping to probably see the best ghost story you'd ever seen in your life. But surprisingly, nothing happened. So following this and being there for some time, the guys decided to leave the house and pack up and just thought, something or nothing, unexplainable, it's fine. Vic comes running out, chasing to the car and says, Graham, Douglas, you need to get back in the house. Things are going crazy. Straight away, they got the things out of the boot and ran straight back into the house. I guess what you could call a minefield of paranormal activity. Graham, trying to set the camera up as quick as he can, was then hit in the face by a Lego brick. As he turned round, there were things flying round the front room. Lego, marble, everything. Following this, Graham is snapping the camera as quick as he can, trying to get the best picture he can to show people of the evidence what had been seen. Absolutely terrified, Graham and Douglas decided to leave. The following day, Graham tries to develop the photos. Surprisingly, he caught absolutely nothing. He was very shocked, very saddened by this, but he knew what he'd seen, and this is his account.
Nothing happened, and we had a cup of tea, I think, and made nice cluck-cluck pleasant noises, and left. And I recall that Graham was putting his gear in the back of the car. I was just about to climb in, and Vic ran out of the house, but it had started again. And we went back in, and that's when the first incident took place.
I just put myself back in this corner with a wide-angle lens and just kept taking pictures. I had no idea what was happening.
I couldn't see where they came from, but they certainly didn't come from the hands of the three children who were present, or Mrs. Hodgson. You know, they came from, you know, bouncing off walls. I mean, there is no question that happened. And Graham was actually hit with one.
I got hit in the eyebrow, just in the forehead with like a Lego brick. When it's travelling at that sort of speed, it certainly made a mark for a few days. It was weird.
As the story is now making national press, the Society of Psychical Research offered their services to the family to see if they could help, and again, as many people, offer a rational explanation into some of the things what were going on in the house. A gentleman by the name of Maurice Groose, who was a very well-known paranormal investigator and had this empathy for people and wanted to give out the best help he physically could, offered his services. For being there for a few days, the activity seemed to just get worse for the family. Chairs tipping, things levitating and flying around the room again. Maurice, thinking he couldn't do this by himself, called a friend of his, Guy Lyon Playfair. Only expecting to be there for a few days, Guy ended up being there for 14 months. 2 weeks after the disturbances started, the Daily Mirror sent another reporter to the scene, Ros Morris.
Well, the first night when I arrived, Maurice Groose was there, and he explained to me what he thought was going on, and then the family went to sleep and we waited to see if anything would happen.
Well, we've just heard a noise, having come downstairs. We've just heard a noise upstairs. And the chair, which was standing by Janet's bed, appears to have moved.
The chair's been thrown 9 feet.
Well, I'm hoping I'm not getting the microphone shaking in my hand, because that was rather an unnerving experience.
I mean, we all know kids can fake being asleep, but it didn't look like that. It looked as though she had been asleep, and suddenly something had happened.
At this point, the family had had enough with the activity. They really couldn't deal with it, really struggling with everything what was going on, and decided to move into the front room, away from everything, to be together, sleep together. Hopefully, might make things a bit easier. But Janet's bed was placed in front of the fireplace, and one night, everyone in the front room heard this scraping noise. Couldn't explain it. Family getting agitated again. Didn't know what to do with themselves. And Guy noticed that the sounds were violent and very uneasy and unsettling. As Janet looked behind the bed, the gas fire seemed to be moving by itself. And everyone in the room witnessed the gas fire somehow levitate above the bed, across Janet's bed, and into the centre of the living room. Everyone screamed. They just couldn't explain it. This is what Morris had to say about the gas fire incident.
Well, here you have the gas fire, different parts of the gas fire. All I can tell you is it's so heavy, I can't pick it up. That's how heavy all the stuff is together. And how do you bend that pipe, let alone pull it out of the wall? I mean, the children couldn't possibly have done it. Impossible.
After this incident, Janet was then sent for some tests. At this point, there was a gentleman by the name of Uri Geller who became very famous for bending spoons. I presume they wanted to see if she might have had this ability, and she was behind the activity going on in the home. In regards to poltergeist activity, a lot of people do believe it's not actually spirit creating this. It could be heightened senses, puberty, anger, anxiety, and with what the family was going through at the time, could that actually be what was going on? As Janet was sent for these tests, one of the things they did check was her brainwaves. Nothing really out of the ordinary, but they did really put her to the test to see if she could actually bend metal just by using her mind. So after numerous tests, it happened. Janet actually bent the metal. They were all shocked. The thing is, could it be her behind the activity? I'll leave that up to you. Following this, the activity carried on. So maybe it wasn't Janet after all behind this. Morris decided to ask the spirit to communicate, maybe knock, a voice, any kind of sign they physically could get to get that confirmation of who it was actually haunting the property. So Morris asked the question, did you pass in this house? And surprisingly to everyone, they received knocks. In total, 53 knocks came through. Morris wasn't happy. He thought the spirit was just taking the mickey, but they couldn't explain it. Morris's next question to the spirit was, are you having a game with me? To everyone's surprise, there was this thunderous crash across the front room. Morris turned and a cardboard box was thrown across the front room, hitting him in the face. Who threw it? Nobody. We're now 3 months into this. Only 3 months. And it's crazy how much activity the family's experiencing. At this point in the timeline, things are progressing and getting worse. Janet was becoming aggressive to the family, to everybody who was entering the house, to the point where doctors were called and had to sedate her. Again, was it Janet experiencing these natural events, or was it actually spirit causing this? We move forward to the 14th of December. The levitation seemed to start. Many people have seen these famous pictures, which we will see very soon. Hazel Short, a local lollipop lady, actually saw Janet levitating around her bedroom, also with objects levitating around Janet at the same time.
And I kept thinking about it, and I thought to myself, well, maybe she was doing it herself. I don't know. So I came straight in, took my coat off, my hat, went straight upstairs to my own bed, laid on my own bed, and tried to lift myself up horizontally, and you couldn't do it.
Following on from this, another strange occurrence seemed to happen, which was unexplained voices. It actually started with the bark of a dog. The strange thing was, there was actually no dog in the house, and there was no dog next door. How can you explain that? Leading on from this as well, the voices seemed to intensify. Janet was then as if a ventriloquist. Things coming through her vocal cords which she couldn't explain. To the point where they even taped her mouth, put water in her mouth to stop these voices, and they were still happening. Janet always said these voices seemed to be coming from behind her, but no matter how much she tried, she couldn't stop them. And at the end of this programme, you will see the audio files of the complete interview with the spirit that came through Janet. As the interview with the spirit continued, he was then asked, who is he? He responded, Bill Watkins. He gave out a detailed account how he passed. It was then later confirmed by Terry Watkins, who was Bill's son.
What about the voices? When did the voices start?
December the 12th.
December the 12th?
Yes.
And how did they start?
Well, one night Mr. Grouse was talking about it about 8:30. He said, all we need now is the voices to talk. And that night I went to bed and can't remember exactly what happened. And
what's that knocking?
yeah, I can hear it now. I was doing that yesterday morning and Peggy was on her own. So she came in to us because it wasn't her. She came in, we sat together and we heard it. And I counted how many knocks, and there was 14 altogether. And it's doing it again now.
That was 3 knocks just now.
Yes, it goes in 3s and 2s. We don't get this at school, these voices are, because I believe when we're all separate, it's not so strong.
Just when you come nearer each other?
Yeah, like here, or our aunts, we were up there together, or in Peggy's next door.
We now move forward to 1978. We're 1 year in from the activity. Still growing strong and still intense. Janet was actually sent to hospital for tests, and after 2 months of being in there, they found no abnormalities. Not long after Janet's discharge from the hospital, 2 of the most famous paranormal investigators turned up at Enfield. That was Ed and Lorraine Warren. Many people know Ed and Lorraine Warren from the case files and from the Conjuring films. They came to see the case for themselves. Surprisingly, not much is actually noted about what happened as they were there. They were actually only there for 1 day.
Fred, could you move something for us?
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to?
No.
But I've come a long way. I've come 2,000 miles.
Honey threw me out the window. No, I didn't. Yes, you did.
How old were you, Fred, when you died?
How was you? 30 years old.
30 years old. 30 years old. Were you married?
Yeah, sure.
Who were you married to? What was her name?
No, I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
One of the things what was noted, as Ed Warren left, he did say to Guy Lyon Playfair that you could make a lot of money out of this case. And then they left. And that was it from the Warrens. It was then decided to call a priest in, as the family just couldn't deal with this anymore. He then turned up, did a blessing on the house, and a form of an exorcism. And this worked. The family now felt they could move on with life, as the activity seemed to cease and calm down. Until their death in 2003, Peggy never left the house. She stayed there right until the end. It was later noted by a family who moved in after that, strange goings on in the house. At that point, they actually didn't know anything about the Enfield haunting. It was only as they researched the case, it all seemed to make sense. Is the spirit of Bill Watkins still residing in Enfield? That is yet to be found out, as the family who live there now have declined to comment on numerous occasions and never let anyone know if any spooky goings on still happen in that house. The one thing I have learned from this case, though, is that over the years, and all this time from the case happening, no one has ever changed their story. No matter how much money they've been offered, no matter how many opportunities they've had to change that story, it's never been changed. So the question I have for you all this evening, everybody, and at the end of this podcast, if you are a skeptic, if you are a believer, has anything changed in your views towards the Enfield haunting? Finally, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching this episode. And now we're going to play these audio files from the spirit of Bill Watkins through Janet Hodgson. Thank you very much. Good night, God bless, love and light, and adios, everybody.
Let me hear you say my name. Come on, let me hear you say my name. That's not my name. Come on, my name's Morris. Let me hear you say it. Morris. Say Dr. Belloc. Come on, let me hear you say that. Come on. Let's hear you say Dr. Belloc. Could you close that door down? Say Dr. Belloc. What is it? Now, if you squeak the bed, I can't hear you talking. Now, say Dr. Belloc. Come on. Come on, say it for me, Dr. Belloc. Dr. Belloc.
Right, that's good. Right. Shut up, that door. I'm 72 years old. I come from Jewett Park, graveyard. And I have right near the church where Rena lives. And all my friends come from before I go again and go to the pub, and then we pick your house, because I used to live here. And I will tell you some more. And if you don't get anyone else, just let Mr. Crook and Mr. Playback.
I want you to tell me whether you remember what happened to you when you died. Just before you died and just after you died.
Days before I died, I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
Bill, if you're there, would you answer me the following question? What have you done with Denise's 30p?
Headed down to the radio, downstairs.
Sorry, Bill, can you say that again, please?
Headed down to the radio, downstairs.
Righto, Bill, I'll go and look. Thanks ever so much. Why can't Janet feel you?
I'm invisible.
You're invisible? Why are you invisible?
So I'm a G-H-O-S-T.
Did any friends go with you?
Yes, all of them. All the dogs, 68 dogs.
And what have you got 68 dogs for?
So that they can protect me from you killing me. They can bite your head off.
How can we kill you, Bill?
You can shoot me off.
Now how can we shoot you if we can't see you, Bill?
By praying to God.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Bill.
By praying to God.
By praying to God. So, what you're saying is we could get rid of you by praying to God.
Yes.